Do you ever have this problem? You're putting a left-hand finger down, but it's hitting the other strings. Now, this is really an issue if you're playing things like double stops. Let's say I'm trying to play an F sharp on the D string with an open A. Well, if my finger keeps touching the open A string, my second finger, I'll get something like this, which is not what I want. Or this might be a problem if you're trying to keep your fingers down while you're playing, which is a great practice technique. You always need to keep your left hand fingers down until you absolutely have to move them. This is really going to help you play faster and with more precision because you're already leaving fingers down. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. But this can become a problem too. Let's say we were trying to maybe go back and forth between the D string and the A string, something like this. You can see how if my finger is touching the A string a little bit, it's not going to sound very good. So I've got some tips for you to help you get those fingers away from all the other strings so that they're just touching the string that you want them to. All right, first off, you want to make sure that your fingernails are trimmed. If you have really long fingernails, then it's really going to make it difficult for you to place your fingers right on the fingertip. And you might realize you're doing something weird with your fingers because that fingernail is touching the fingerboard first. So make sure you trim your fingernails. Second, you want to make sure that you are playing on the tips of your fingers and that your fingers are like little squares. That's how they are contacting the fingerboard. You definitely don't want them to be contacting the fingerboard like a slope. This will definitely make your finger touch the other string below it. Next up, you want to make sure that your wrist is straight. If your wrist is crooked like this, do you see how that automatically makes your fingers go at an angle when you put them on the fingerboard? So if you have your wrist straight, this is going to give you a lot more room here to curve your fingers. Next up, you want to make sure that your thumb is not too high. This kind of goes with the crooked wrist because if your thumb is too high, it will probably bring your wrist up as well and affect what you're doing here with your fingers. So make sure your thumb is down. Next up, you also want to make sure that you have some space here in between the neck and the palm of your hand. It's about enough that you could fit maybe a small kind of a bouncy ball in there or something. It's definitely not really, really close to the fingerboard, so have some space there. And then my final tip for you is to try rotating your elbow. If you bring your elbow forward a little bit, that might bring your thumb down, but what it's also going to do is rotate your fingers away from that other string that you're trying to avoid, and it will help you play more on the fingertips. You can notice how if my elbow's way back here, the fingers are kind of contacting the string at a slant, and I'm definitely touching the string below. But when I rotate my elbow forward, it automatically gives me space and helps me play right on the fingertips. So try to use those tips to help you avoid hitting other strings with your left-hand fingers. And if you enjoyed this lesson, you can check out this video or this video and head over to meadowlarkviolin.com for a lot more violin resources. I'm Laura from Meadowlark Violin. Happy practicing.